this thing yeah. But I bought my who the hell knows, man.
I thought that Southwest mostly flew out of Long Beach, but they fly out of LAX too.
Huge. They own Terminal 1.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm always on like Terminal 11, Sun Country. It's like some auxiliary thing. You have to take a bus. Yes. All right, cool. No one's on Zoom. Yeah. See you later, Neil. If you didn't know, Neil's the instrument instructor here. It's really good if you want a refresher on your instrument for double I or something. We'll get there. Okay, so not much new information that we're going to go over today. Before we get started, was there any questions that I hope you guys have been studying at home. Have you been studying at home? Please tell me you have. Okay,
Yes.
good. Feel free whenever you're studying, you're going to come across something that you don't understand or you think you kind of get. Bring it up to class. We can spend the first 10 minutes going over what's giving you a hard time studying by yourself, because chances are there's like a few other people in class that are also trying to comprehend the same thing. So does anyone have anything like that?
Like,
Oh, you guys were chatting.
we're trying to get the slide.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was asking if you have any questions from your home study.
I'm going to be coming up, I guess. I think that this weekend I need to go back into my teen school and go through like I know that one thing I had a lot of trouble with was like charts. That's coming up next week, charts, and then probably practice a little bit more weight and balance on my own.
Oh, okay. So like, could you be more specific about what kind of charts? Like performance charts, like how long it takes you to take off and land, or like weight and balance? Oh, like the sectional charts. Chart symbology. Yeah.
Distance.
Yeah, we will definitely be going over that. Airspace is next week, and I'm gonna make it as simple as possible. People have some really weird memory aids to figure out. They like draw a picture to remember their airspace. I think I have a way to teach it to you where it'll just stick. It'll make sense. Like for the cloud clearances and stuff. We'll spend a whole day on that, I believe, next week. But you guys are ahead of me. I just know it's coming up like the next day. This weekend I'll take a look at what we're going over next week, but I believe that's in there. All right. But good for you on looking ahead. I would recommend that if hopefully all of you did your King School completely 100% before you got here. If you didn't, you should be doing your King School in anticipation of what we're doing. It roughly lines up with our curriculum. So we're doing week 3. Is it week 3 already? Yeah, we're doing week 3 next week. So study week 3 this weekend, and if you don't quite finish it, at least like stay a few days ahead so you can come with questions. And when we talk about stuff, you'll be coming from a place of at least familiarity. And if you have done your King School already, just go through and review it. All right. So I mentioned a few times in class, and if you've flown with me, we've talked a little bit about ADM. And we're just going to go over a few safety things that exhibit good ADM. Does anyone remember what ADM stands for? Aeronautical decision making, which can happen on the ground too. It just means that you're making the best choice for that circumstance, and you're not allowing any outside pressures influence you on whether you should go or not. So we'll go through a few of these. This is a graph of general aviation accidents and where they happen. So if you take a look at it one by one, pre-flight and taxi, pretty low. What could happen? What kind of accident could you have during pre-flight and taxi?
Run into a prop. It's like on.
Yeah, I guess you could taxi your plane straight into the nose of another plane. that's possible. We can do that.
Or
What about like the ramp?
if
Could
you
we
were
get,
pre-flooding, you could like accidentally walk into the prop.
oh shit, yeah. Actually, talking about that, we had an incident where everyone's fine, but it was someone who was renting our plane, had a lot of hours, no idea what they were thinking. We have a video of it somewhere. It's not published, so I can't find it. But basically taking his nieces or cousins or something up for a flight to a two-seater plane. So go up with one of them, come, they have a good time. They come back, pull up to Echo on the ramp. So it's usually where you like get your ATIS and stuff, that area by the fuel pumps. So they put the parking brake on, don't turn off the engine, and the girl gets out, and the other girl is there, and the pilot's just sitting in the front seat, letting this happen. And they come out, and then of course it's like a 8-year-old and a 13-year-old girl. The 13-year-old's the next one, and let's say this is the right wing, and this is where you get on to get into the plane. She goes over and she's like taking pictures, and then she comes up to the front behind the moving pellet, behind it. And actually, she ran to it, first of all. And then she takes some pictures, like maybe less than a foot away from this moving prop. Didn't turn the plane off. It shouldn't have happened at all. You shut the plane down. You don't do any hot seat stuff. But yeah, kept it running the entire time. She takes her pictures, and then you can see her lean forward as she runs away. Didn't touch her.
Oh,
She ended up being totally fine. But those types of accidents do happen. And that's the kind of thing that would haunt you for your entire life. I think I heard a story of someone here, not a student, but like someone else, ended up hitting a dog on final and it's just like tore him up,
oh, yeah.
How can we avoid stuff like that during taxiing, being on the ramp? How do you avoid that kind of stuff? Being observant, yeah. The term we use for that is situational awareness. So right now, you guys are, I hope, probably really on your checklists. So, and you're not as familiar with things, so you're really just reading and doing and reading and doing. So let's say you're in the run-up and you go, okay, I'm doing the run-up checklist and throttle 4,000, okay, 40, 50, 40, 20, okay, that's good. Okay, lane A, okay, and you haven't looked out at all and you have been creeping forward toward the 3 planes that are holding short on 2-9 right, and then you hit them. You're always maintaining the situational awareness, and it's a difficult practice when you are familiar with the place. Weirdly enough, people start to get really cozy in the plane, even just after a couple weeks, exactly where you guys are. And you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. And you're not as observant on what's going on outside. So maintaining that situational awareness is super important. Another place where those accidents could happen is I described the video, but I couldn't find it. I think I maybe showed Wyatt this one. Guy coming into land at an untowered airport, gets into ground effect, and this other plane just taxis straight in front of him to cross the runway, and they yank back, the stall horns squealing, and they just narrowly miss it. They were over familiar with that airport, probably just popping over to get some fuel or something. Didn't have situational awareness. With all that said, this is only where 3.5% of accidents happen. Moving on, we have climbs. That's more or less fine. What kind of accident could you have on a climb? Do you think? Bird strike. Yeah, you have a bird strike. Usually, unless they're Canadian geese that get sucked into both of your turbines, that's fine. I know people who've hit birds. You just have a red mark on your wing, and you feel kind of gross about it, but It happens. But as far as like an accident, we actually train for this. The maneuvers that you've been doing, can you think of a maneuver that would mimic, yes, a power on stall? We could, a lot of times you're concentrated on making that crosswind turn and you're like looking to see if it's clear and you're pitching back too much, maybe put in a little too much rudder too, and you don't realize the airspeed's going down, you stall and come down. But again, very small amount. Descents, very small amounts. Then we start getting into the more meaty ones. Approach. So that could be like that could be referring to an instrument approach. Maybe you descend below your minimums, not really related to this. It could mean turning from your downwind to base without clearing final, and you hit someone like that. Approach is a little bit higher up. Maneuvering. Then we get into the really bulky ones. Landing. Landing is 15% of your flight time, as 24% of accidents happen in that 15% of your flight time. And that's during landing. You could be misjudging how high up you are, clip something. You could perhaps come in a little bit hard, bounce, come back down, porpoise, collapse the nose gear. I'll get you on attendance, Chris. Siffer. Yeah, so that's another common place for accidents to happen. These aren't necessarily fatal, it's just an accident. Then we get to the biggest one. That is 2% of our flight time is takeoff and initial climb, and it is 23% of aviation accidents. A quarter of the accidents almost happening in that 2% window. How can we make sure that we are focused during that time? How can we make sure that we mitigate the risks of those accidents during our initial takeoff and climb?
Doing the run up.
Yeah, doing a thorough run-up, doing a thorough pre-flight. I wasn't even thinking about that, but that's true. Making sure that, hey, I actually did check all of the fluids. I actually did check to see if the brakes were good. I checked to make sure that everything in the engine compartment is dry and not wet with something. I actually did sump the fuel tanks thoroughly, especially after a rain. It's really important when it rains, you sump the tanks thoroughly, make sure there's no water in there. And it goes without saying, I should hope, that if you see water or debris in it, you don't put that back into the tank. But yeah, doing a thorough pre-flight, doing a thorough run-up, not just breezing through it, but actually taking a look. How much is the RPM jumping? How much is our fuel pressure changing? That's a good one. Anyone else? How can we mitigate those risks, take off and climb?
Briefing.
A briefing. Good. Another good one. A couple DPEs have told me, brief what you would actually do. So one of the things about sling briefings is in our plane, it is possible to make that impossible turn. Yeah, and you can do it at a fairly low altitude and still make, if not the runway, the airport property. You could land on the taxiway, you could land on the grass kind of diagonally. So like me, I'd say at 400 feet indicated, I'm going to make that turn. Anything before that, I'm going to slip it down and land in front. But it sounds really weird to a DPE that's used to Cessnas that could never make that turn and glide back safely. So people started briefing like, oh yeah, changing their brief for the DPE or changing their brief for the phase check. Keep your briefing realistic, say what you would actually do in that situation. And once you start having flights as PIC, pilot in command, that's going to start happening when you do your first solos. only brief what you would actually do and also what you have actually trained for. If you haven't trained for an impossible turn, then maybe if that's even a part of your briefing, you would put it at a higher altitude to make sure that you can make it. Does that all make sense? Okay, anything else we can use to mitigate the risks on the initial takeoff and climb? I'm thinking of kind of a big one that's a common thing. Situational awareness, going back, can help. Who can tell me what a sterile cockpit is?
Other conversations. Or, well, mine was sterile pocket under what, 10,000.
No talking. Focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. For commercial operations, yeah, it's usually 10,000 feet, 15,000 feet. It depends on the airline. Or up until cruise, you could say, wherever you level out. Yeah, not super concerned about where it stops, but a sterile cockpit means that you aren't talking about anything unrelated to your actual flight. And I don't mean like, hey, what FBO are we going to stop at on our cross country? But you keep it strictly related to what's going on in the plane. So, like, some asshole cuts you off at Compton and doing a short approach, you have to maneuver around them, and you're still talking about it when you're about to take off. That can be distracting to what's going on, and that's where an accident can happen. So, you know, when we're taxiing back, a lot of times people say sterile cockpit. If you're learning landings, your CFI is gonna like talk to you about your on the way back. They might be talking about training stuff on the taxiway, and that's fine. But at the very least, at the very, very least, I'd say until you make that crosswind turn or until you get onto the downwind, you're only talking about what's happening in the plane. Okay, flaps up 500 feet. Okay, we've got our maps. All right, we're at the proper altitude. We're going to make the crosswind turn. Okay, crosswind, downwind. Okay, TPA, level out, pull some power back, trim. Then you can start having that conversation. That phase of flight is super critical. And yeah, 2% of the flight time, a quarter of the accidents. It's really easy to think that you won't be a statistic, but they come from somewhere. They all come from well-meaning pilots who don't want to crash. So keep that first climb sacred. Identifying hazards, pave checklists. Okay. So this is a checklist to basically mentally go over each aspect of a flight and see if there are any hazards that we can either mitigate and still fly, or hazards that are unacceptable to our flight and we have to cancel, postpone, do something else. So first thing to assess is yourself. And not for nothing, your CFI. I've never had this happen. I've never heard of it happening, but I'm sure it has happened somewhere, if not this school, somewhere. Your CFI starts telling you about how crazy of a night that they had and that they're super tired and their head hurts. They might be probably hungover. They might even say that they're hungover. You don't fly in those situations. Does anyone know what the alcohol regulations are?
Yeah.
That's one of them. 0.04 is another one. There's another catch-all one. Wyatt?
If you're under 0.04, it's still illegal, and you've been more than 8 hours bottom of throttle, it's still illegal, but it's still get you for what's that law? It's not drunk while driving motor vehicle, it's reckless endangerment.
Reckless endangerment. If you are under the effects of alcohol, that doesn't mean necessarily that you're drunk, but a hangover is under the effects of alcohol. You're not fit to fly. So the first one is assessing the pilot. Hey, did your did you put your cap down this morning and now you're gonna go fly? You might be a little bit distracted. Don't fly, just take it off. Do you have like some sinus problems? You getting really bad allergies? We'll talk more about specifically the sinuses related to flight, but that can be super painful climbing and descending. Assessing the pilot, making sure that they're fit to fly. We'll go a little more in depth in the next slide. Aircraft. What hazards could be associated with the aircraft?
Spacewalk.
Sure. There's something wrong with it. Maybe you catch something in pre-flight. It's not in a flyable condition. That's a part of the responsibilities of a PIC is to make sure that the plane is airworthy before you take off. So part of that is a good pre-flight. And then there's like legal airworthiness stuff. Does anyone know what I'm talking about yet?
Like the documents that need to be.
Yeah, what kind of documents do we need?
The airworthiness, yeah.
Registration,
The air.
yeah,
Weight balance.
weight and balance and
Operating.
operating limitations. And that would be in the plane specific POH that's in the glove box. There's another thing we have to check to make sure that the plane is airworthy. We have some inspections that we have to do from time to time, right, Amara? We talked about those. Can you remember some of them? Yeah, service bulletins, that's not required, but it is a good thing to check. What else? Required inspections, 100-hour, annual. Yeah, we need to make sure that all of these required inspections are up to date. Aviates, yes, exactly. Another part of aircraft, which could arguably be a part of pilot, is do you have time in this plane? Maybe you are a pretty experienced pilot, but you've never flown this particular plane before. Okay, this is a hazard. Maybe you can just fly it just fine, but it is like an added like weight to the balance of is this flight gonna go or not? Environment. What do you mean by environment? Anyone think of an environmental hazard for a flight?
Conditions aren't VFR.
Yeah, weather. It could even be VFR, but it's windy as hell and it's past your abilities, or it could just be the flight is happening at night. Night is harder than flying during the day, especially if you're not used to it. Environment could be terrain. We're flying over the mountains, or we're flying over the mountains at night, or we're flying over the mountains at night and the visibility is poor, but it's all still VFR. Yeah, those are environmental hazards. And what are external pressures?
Being rushed.
Being rushed. Yeah, that's a big one. Rushed by who?
That you need to be some like this or.
Passengers pressuring you. Yeah, that's good for especially for what we are going to be doing eventually is flying big boy planes with people who pay to be in there. What about in our circumstances right now as aspiring private pilots? Who would pressure you?
Yes, as 141, we're trying to stay on schedule.
Trying to stay on that schedule. Yeah, that's a really good external pressure. If I don't get this done, then I'm gonna fall behind where I'm supposed to be. I'm gonna miss the check ride, whatever. I have to do this phase check because the person who's doing the phase checks is gonna be gone for 4 days and I don't want to fall behind. Yeah, it's a great external pressure. Can you think of anything else?
Cancellation fee.
Cancellation fee. You know why I couldn't agree with you more? I could not agree with that statement more. Yeah. If you wake up sick and you're afraid that if you don't show up, you're gonna get a cancellation fee, tell your CFI. If there's any way you can prove it, do that. But I don't want anyone flying when they are not in the condition to fly. We started imposing a $250 cancellation fee for anything within a 24-hour notice. If it's within 24 hours and you cancel for whatever reason, you get a cancellation fee. I am against this. I understand why that was happening because we would have a beautiful 7 a.m. Morning, clear skies, and we'd have 20 flights scheduled to go out, and literally 4, 5, 6 of them would actually show up. So I understand the need to get people here, but if anything goes against this next part, the I'm safe checklist that we're going to talk about, don't fly. Tell your CFI, they'll take care of it for you. Another external pressure could be your CFI themselves. Maybe you don't feel you have to have a balance with this. On one hand, you have to trust that your instructor knows what's going on and they're there to keep you safe. They might sometimes push you to go beyond what's comfortable. Oh, I haven't been doing landings for very long and we have a pretty strong crosswind. I don't know if I want to fly. They might say, yeah, the decision's up to you. We can cancel for weather, but I really think we should fly. This would be good practice for you. Oh, we're supposed to do a cross country, but it's too hazy. So you have to trust them to some degree. But if you are absolutely, no, I don't want to do this, this doesn't feel good or right to me, then you have to say no. Yeah, good external pressures. So that's like the general format. So in the P of PAVE, we have the I'm safe checklists. This is for each pilot. And it stands for, write this down because this is definitely going to be in a check ride and or a phase check. We have illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, emotions, and also eating. So yeah, if you're sick, especially if you have like the flu or something, don't fly. Don't get your CFI sick. You're gonna end up canceling 5 other people's flights because you got your CFI sick and then they had to call out. So my opinion is flying sick is selfish. We're in close quarters, especially in the plane. So don't get who you're flying with sick because then a bunch of other people's flights get canceled too. And also, it's just not safe. If you're not clear-headed, you don't make good decisions. Medication. There are some medications that you can take, some medications that you can't take. If you're unsure, you can literally just Google what medications can a pilot take, and it'll take you to an FAA website. Why, you don't know that website off the top of your head, do you? The website for the FAA medications list. You could literally just Google FAA medications list and it'll tell you if you can take it or not, how long you have to wait. Like you can take Benadryl, but you have to wait, I don't know what it is, 36 hours, 48 hours. There are other allergy medications that you can take regularly. So if you're on medications, check that list, see if you can get on something that you can fly on. And if not, wait the required waiting period. One medication that unfortunately you can never take is medical marijuana. That is one of those things that is legal in most states now, but you can't do it federally. So if you haven't given it up yet, I'm sorry to say you have to. Stress. Stress is a big one. Stress is a big one. How many of you, even just in your early stages of flying, it could have been like the first time you taxied, it could have been the first time you were taking off, something weird or unexpected happened in the plane and you kind of did something erratic to try to save it or fix the situation. I don't need to see a show of hands or anything, but stress, immediate stress can cause you to make poor decisions, react very quickly. You know, you yank back on the stick, you almost go off the runway because you don't have enough rudder in, you almost go off the taxiway. So that immediate stress can make you make impulsive decisions. But this is talking about more like chronic stress. Maybe you're on a deadline for these things. You want to get these ratings done as soon as possible. maybe you financed a certain amount of housing and you're like, I need to get this done because I'm running out of money. Could be family issues, could be anything. This chronic stress really has a negative safety effect on your flights. But even more than that, because your CFI should be helping you stay safe, especially at this point. So it's not just like, hey, if you have some, you got another past due credit card bill and you're kind of stressing out about it that you're going to crash the plane, your CFI will be there to help you with that. But in addition to safety of flight, stress and fatigue is not a good condition to be in for learning. If you're stressed out about something, so much so that you're going to be preoccupied with this, don't fly because it's going to be a waste of time. You're going to waste that time and you're going to want it back some other time. So it doesn't matter if the weather's been terrible for a week or so and you just get this flight, but something's going on that's stressing you out or you didn't get enough sleep, don't do the flight. Alcohol, 91-117, that's a regulation that you need to know. I'd write that one down, 91-117. Like we said before, has to be under 0.04% blood alcohol content. No drinks within 8 hours of the flight. I'd probably say 12 at least. And you can't be under the effects of alcohol. Has to hit all three of those. You have to meet all three criteria. And then the last one, eating and emotion. Emotion kind of relates to stress, but you could be experiencing other emotions too. I don't think there's such a thing as being too happy to fly. But yeah, anything that's distracting, take that in consideration. And
Just throw it out there, I used to have a pilot that could not function in the day. So
Yes.
he knew that he didn't have breakfast that morning or he didn't eat because he was just like not there. And I was like, oh my God, like someone make salad. It's like, hello, like it completely, I thought it was joking when I first started flying with it, but no, he really could not function if he didn't eat.
no, it's real. It's real. And even if you can muster basic functions, again, not a good state to be in to try to learn. If your stomach's growling and you just started your landings practice and you're like, all you're thinking about is trying to get back so you can eat. And I'll throw another one on there. Bathroom. Go to the bathroom before you fly, especially in your cross countries. The last thing you want is to be like coming into land and getting these weird instructions and 360s and all you are thinking about is shutting down the plane before you pee your pants. Go pee before. This is another safety checklist. These are the hazardous attitudes that pilots are most likely to have. Each one of these may relate to you to some degree at some point or another, but there's usually one or two that you fall into. Yeah. So these hazardous attitudes start with anti-authority. Anti-authority could be like anti-authority is usually related to macho as well, but it's basically saying, I know better than the rules. I have experience doing this. I know that Sling says that we have to land with 5 gallons on each side when we're doing a cross country, but I really want to make it to another 150 miles, so we can run the tanks a little bit low. That would be anti-authority. Assuming that you know better than the rules or even more the FAA regulations. These FAA regulations that you're becoming more familiar with are written in blood. It's what FAA representatives say all the time. You ever come across a weird law that says like, I don't know, you're not allowed to ride your lawnmower down the street or something? You ever come across those like internet lists of weird laws in a town? You know that those are written for a specific person who did that.
In Florida, it's illegal to, I think, bathe an alligator in your bathtub.
To bathe an alligator in your bathtub, sure. because John Boy did it and he got in there with it and he probably got something bit off. So you're not allowed to do that anymore. FAA regulations are the same thing. Over the last, 80, 90, 100 years, these rules have come into place because of, problems, usually fatal problems. That's why we have minimum safe altitudes, minimum weather restrictions. Yeah, they're there for a reason, and they are the bare minimum. It's always best to go above and beyond those rules. So that's anti-authority. Impulsivity would be a quick reaction without thinking. So if you have, let's say you're at 5,000 feet in the practice area over the golf course, and you have some engine roughness, and you go, engine roughness, I gotta land this plane, squawk 7,700, and they start doing a steep spiral and land on the golf course. Well, one, you could have, tried to save the engine. You could have tried to troubleshoot that. If it went out, you could try restarting. And at that altitude, you could have made Torrance, you probably could have made Long Beach. Stop, think about what the best solution is, and then do it. You almost always have more time than you think. If you're on a head-on collision course with someone, then yes, you need to react decisively, but not impulsively. So the antidote for this is think first. I'll see this a lot in instrument training where there's a whole checklist of things that you need to do, and they'll impulsively start doing something without really thinking it through first. Invulnerability, it won't happen to me. Like I said earlier, when talking about accidents and during phases of flight, I'll be honest, I don't think that I'm going to die in a plane accident at all. I don't think that I'm going to get into a stall spin base to final because I have experience. It's 400 hours of experience. That's not that much. I have training. All these people who get into accidents, they have some level of experience too. They have some level of training. I am not invulnerable. You will sometimes see people making decisions that maybe they shouldn't be making. It's overcast at 1,800 and they're going to do a cross country all the way to San Bernardino at 1,500 feet. Legal? Perhaps. Smart? Hell no. You can't glide to a good airport at that altitude, and if you have an issue, you're going to be landing on the freeway, and you didn't need to do that. So yeah, it can happen to you. It can happen to me. It can happen to anyone. Macho, again, it's kind of related to anti-authority, but it's saying, yeah, I can do it. I'm capable. I've flown at 1,500 feet below the clouds before, so I can do it again. I have, I don't know, can't think of any other good situations. Anyone think of something that someone would try because they're overconfident that they probably shouldn't?
Landing in a 29 crosswind.
Sure, yeah. Landing in a super high crosswind component. Partly you have to incrementally increase those minimums, see what you're capable of. But yeah, maybe they landed in super gusty conditions before, and when they went to land, it was like in a lull during the gust and it was fine. And this time they're going to hit a huge gust and it won't go as well. But yeah, if you don't, the whole tenet of risk management is to identify the hazards and mitigate those hazards. And if there's anything you can do to make the flight safer, you do that. There are always risks associated with flying. So it's not exactly taking chances, but you'll always be doing some level of calculated risk in this. But the key is to get it down as low as possible. And resignation is where you just get overwhelmed and stop. There's too many things happening. You get saturated and you just kind of freak out and freeze or stop doing whatever it is you're doing. You know, you actually do have an engine out and you're in the practice area and there's like three people below you and you're like trying to figure out a just like say, I'm gonna skip the checklist, I'm gonna skip talking to people, I just need to like yeah, I'm just gonna give up. You can't give up. You have to try, even if it seems above your capabilities. I'm not helpless. I can make a difference. You say that in the mirror every morning. I am not helpless. I can make a difference. I am a real pilot and I make good decisions. In other emergency situations, we have a lot of resources. We're not on our own, even if we're with someone who is not a pilot. So a passenger can assist with um, spotting traffic. They could they can even read checklists in an emergency situation. That's a good thing to put in your briefing. Here's the emergency checklists. And in the event of emergency, you'll be reading this and I'll be performing it. Confirm the landing gear is down. We don't have landing gear. Yeah, you can kind of train them a little bit to help you out with these things. So you can use a passenger as a resource. We also have a wealth of resources in our plane. We have ADS-B data to help us with traffic. We have our maps. We have airport information. We have weather information. We have a whole bunch of stuff in there that we can reach out to. Can anyone think of any other resources that we could have if we're by ourselves and need help in the plane?
ATC.
ATC. Yes, exactly. Especially if you're freaking out, especially if you don't know what's going on. Ask ATC and they can talk you down. You ever seen those videos online of my flight, this is my first flight, and the guy teaching me is slumped over in the seat and I don't know what I'm doing, and ATC talks them down, they end up landing the plane. Or they get into IMC and they're like, oh, mayday, 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 I don't know what's going on, I don't know where I am. And then they just talk them through it, get them straight and level, and point them in a direction. ATC is a great resource in case of an emergency, or even not an emergency, they can be a good resource. I guess that's kind of external. Yeah, ATC, nav facilities, other pilots on CTAF. Hey, I'm coming into land at Compton. You can say, don't see anyone at ADS-B, say, hey, we're coming in. Is anyone in the pattern? Maybe the winds are going the opposite direction than they usually do, and say, hey, which runway are we using today? You can just talk to people. A lot of times, especially early on, you get like focused on the right way to talk like a pilot. And it is good to use the correct terminology, but when in doubt, just talk. You've been talking your whole lives. Just communicate what you need. I'm going to go through these other ones pretty quick. There is the 5 Ps model, which is kind of like that what do we do before? The PAVE checklist. And these are other areas that you can check for hazards. The plan, okay, we're going on a cross country, we need this amount of fuel, and this runway is closed, and these taxiways are closed. Maybe we're doing an approach, and the glide slope is out, whatever. We're making sure that we have everything that we're planning for. We know every piece of information that we can about the flights. There's a regulation related to this that we talked about last week, and it's about the PIC's responsibility to know everything they can about the flight. Does anyone know what that regulation is or what the acronym is? Wyatt?
91-103.
91-103, also known as the NW Craft regulation. So the plan is basically talking about that. We know about the NOTAMs on the way, NOTAMs at the airport, the weather. No ATC delays don't really apply to us. What's R?
Wavelengths.
Runway lengths, thank you. A. Alternates. F and T.
Take off landing.
Yeah, so that's the plan. We got to know that stuff. Just because your CFO was like, oh, I was just there yesterday. Let's just hop in the plane and go. Still check your NOTAMs, check your weather, make sure it's good. It doesn't take that long. Plane, make sure it's airworthy in all senses of that it's able to fly with a good pre-flight, and that it's completely legal. Pilot, I'm safe checklist that we talked about, and also, are you legal to fly? Do you have the correct endorsements? Maybe you're taking a solo and your solo endorsement has expired. What do you need to have on you as a pilot at all times when you're flying?
Government ID,
Yeah, that's one.
Medical.
Medical, that's another one.
pilot's
Pilot certificate, one more. That I just mentioned. Let's say you're soloing and you need to prove to an FAA ramp check that you are allowed to solo. How would you show them that? Your endorsements, which means you need to have your logbook with you to show any endorsements for that. Passengers, talked about pressures coming from a passenger. I own this plane and I need to get there for a business meeting because I got to do business things with my business friends. They can put some pressure on you, or you could be working for a 135 and the dispatcher who's not a pilot is saying, no, we need to get this here because it needs to be serviced, and then you need to get on this other plane so you can ferry for this customer 3 hours later, and they'll pressure you. Taking a look at that, that's a good category to check. Is how they got Kobe. Has consequences.
Copy that.
And programming. Do you understand how to operate everything in this plane? Maybe it's unfamiliar to you. You guys are all coming up on pretty advanced avionics, and maybe a buddy of yours is like, hey, can you fly my 150 to this place for me? And it's all steam gauges and has manual mixture, and you haven't done that before. Are you familiar with how this plane works? Yeah. And the decide model. So all these other ones were for planning purposes. The decide model is kind of at all phases of flight. Before, right, so like while you're doing your planning, while you're doing your pre-flight, right before you take off, throughout the flight, you kind of go over this mentally, and then right before you land, you go through these. This is a mental checklist. It's not even something that necessarily needs to be said out loud. But this is how you deal with a problem. First step is detect. You notice that there is something unusual. Hey, the engine sounds weird. Or, hey, I have -1 amps. Well, that's could be fine, but it's not normal. I'm detecting that something unusual is taking place. I haven't heard anyone on the radio in 5 minutes. That's unusual. Don't know if it's a problem yet. Estimate. Okay, let's evaluate this unusual thing and see if it indeed is a problem. Maybe do some troubleshooting and see what's going on. Okay, estimate. I have 1 negative amp. Probably it just means I need to shed a little bit of load and we'll be fine. But we're gonna check and see if this is a generator failure. We'll test it out a little bit. Estimate the need to do something about this unusual thing. Maybe it's something as simple as my plane is idling at 2100 RPMs on the ramp. It's unusual. The estimate step is, do we need to do something about this? Maybe yes, maybe no. Course of actions, we identify like, what can we do about this? What can we do to troubleshoot it? What can we do to dig a little bit deeper and find out if this truly is a problem? We'll pick the best course of action and we'll go with that. So we'll identify, this is kind of out of order, I think. We'll identify solutions to this problem. And then we'll try to find a pathway to get to that solution. And then we will try it out. So I think of this, you'll need to know the decide model potentially for a check ride purpose. people put acronyms like this in there and use specific words so it can fit an acronym, so it's easy to remember. But I think for me, I think of it as see, think, plan or troubleshoot, and then try it out. And then afterward, you go back to the beginning. See, did this thing work? Do I need to do it again? If it didn't work, try something else. See, think, try, go through that, go through those steps. This helps you slow down and not do something impulsive. All right, we have our week 2 quiz. Go ahead, scan this. This will also be attached to a break. So if you want to take a break now, you can. If you want to do the quiz and take a break after, you can. But between the break and taking the quiz, it's 9:57. 10:15 is when we're going to start up again. That should be plenty of time to take this quiz. Get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. So you had nothing else better to do today, Wyatt? Like, what's going on right now? We almost didn't get back in. We left at 7 to do pattern in Compton. And it was like clear skies, but a layer moved in. And then when we came back, we had to come back at like 1300. And then, yeah, if it was like that when we left, that would.
The meter was like broken 1500 and Dylan came out. It's like you had 500 broken and 1500. It's kind of cool.
It was pretty hazy too. At the courthouse or at the blimp, we couldn't see the courthouse. See the runway, we could see the airport, but we couldn't see the courthouse. Pretty good. Yeah.
Do something to it's like
Not 20.
no, it's not that. So
It's another tower, right? Yeah. It's in the church though.
for me to do so
Cool. So what's it like at night? Couldn't see shit.
fantastic.
Why?
That's true.
It's going. Yeah, you just have 650 up. It's like red
Yeah.
to the sides. That's so scary. Yeah, I mean, some people just don't cross mountains at night. But if you follow, if it's
There's that.
VFR, you just follow the road and you'll be.
I can see IFR. Yeah.
Well, that's why the IFR, like, if you file, you'd be at a super high altitude, so you can go over the mountains.
Yeah.
You don't go around them.
True. So
What counts this? It's like 2 planes did like 2 landings over there, so we had to do the whole thing to ourselves.
it's like complicated.
They set it down a couple times, pretty good. Couple times needed some work, but very nice.
That's slamming good.
I think we had one, but the rest of them were really good.
That was that company there, yeah. I was left base, I don't know if I told you, it's left base. And here comes a banner to on the right base.
October,
I don't know who he is.
there's like a 1 in 3 chance that it was Scott on.
Well, if it was, then it should know better.
What happened?
So. Thompson, E.
Draw the courthouse. Yeah, where's the courthouse related to this? Like, are we really close to the runway or?
Yeah. House. So,
Okay.
someone's going to be.
Pretty normal base, maybe a little bit short.
Yeah, well, here comes, I could hurt, I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
He was good. And my guys like shot and drop it. I think he just came, but I didn't over.
So you went for 2.9 or 2.5 right, and he went for 2.5 left.
No, he went midfield because like that's like.
Oh, yeah.
But like he was just. And it was pretty sketch.
And you were making calls for 2-5, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't you take 2-5 left instead?
So.
You slow flight,
Well, no,
55 knots.
That's the
Keep
thing.
it there, keep
That's the
it
thing.
there.
I had to chop it to drop it. If I'd stayed at the altitude, I was worried about his banner though, because like it sits below their actual aircraft.
Right.
Me and Kyra joke, we're like, what's the super CG for like
Stuck in a banner.
for like a high noon in your face.
Seen those banner towers all over the place. I've never once been able to read what the banner says. It's a terrible form of advertising. I think it's
Like $1.
Scott says it's Scott says it's mainly for people on the beach, because you can fly
Yeah.
super low and
sure. Downforce. Yeah, let's get a commercial final this morning. And I just did, I was like, I didn't get it.
you got the hours. Your commercial. What do you mean?
977 right now. And then I need to do like 13 more hours or something.
177. Including your cents.
No,
No. What is it including cents?
to
Oh. So far, hey, I need 50 more hours. Shit. 20 more hours? Alright. Did that shit run fast.
we don't want to fuck cross country last night. That's how bad I was.
Well. Not everything going on Sunday.
You know.
16.
I'd say that ends it.
You know you have. So what? Huh? So what? You know what you have today? What? Like where you're doing stuff to do. I think I'll just be perfecting things. Use the stuff that's. We're doing check, right? We're going to base check something. So you're doing a phase check. It's just like really
progress check.
Yeah, it's like their first. It makes like no sense though. Some of the stuff that's on there is like my they have like building radio comms. Like, my radio comms kind of suck. Like they're like on the ground they're fine, but like I can't do them in the air and and then like the listening. Yeah, and it says like all this stuff. There's like landing all that stuff too. I don't know. Let's see. I really wonder. You're the one that's cheating, bro. You're the one that's ahead of all of us. I'm trying to catch up to you, man. I got that extra lesson. No, man. I'll cheat. You're not cheating, you're not trying. But it says all that on there. Yes, I guess like you have to do I think it was just talk about just like the media makes power on, power off stalls. Obviously like lines and just like anything and radio communications.
Yeah. Okay.
Like-
Stuff you know, with like really old.
I don't like stuff. Yesterday, somebody's cologne before we walked in was so
You
great.
said hello, that wasn't me.
Yeah. Well, it was like when we walked in the room,
Oh.
I kept having to put Vicks on my nose. Wonder if they're gonna film my face recently. Probably. Yeah. Don't listen with this guy. Guy's just trying to stress me. I see if I hasn't mentioned it, so. When was the last time you seen your CFI? Last week.
Yeah. Yeah, but this guy's already landing too, though.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's so.
I've had mine twice. I've just had my fingers on it. Like you shut up. Like put your feet on the rotor so you can feel it. My instructor. And then did it say, dude. And like he always sounds like he's like this. He's like, dude, don't death rip it. Like
How'd the quiz go?
it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who thinks they got the worst score? Raise your hand. All right, we'll see. Right.
I always feel like there's like one or two on there that we just like didn't really.
Yes.
Like the flat things one?
Able to, no, is there an M in there?
Who said we talked?
That's right. GABLEDON.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it just.
Exactly. Did we talk about flat spins?
No.
No.
But then, what was like, another word?
I didn't look. No one else should have either. Okay. Let's go over some of these. Will an aircraft with a forward CG be more or less fuel efficient? Less fuel efficient. Good. Someone tell me why.
Because it's gonna like the weight is gonna wanna pitch it down, so you're gonna have to fight that and probably put in more throttle to keep pitching up.
Yeah, you're gonna have to hold the nose up. Yeah, that makes sense. That means a greater angle of attack. Greater angle of attack means more lift. It also means more induced drag. What can you do inside the orange box? Orange box. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit at Compton. You were like, do I have to come up to the brush? Yeah, so this is good for takeoff and taxi. We can't land in this. Where can we land in this picture? Yeah, actually just off of this picture, somewhere up here.
So where the numbers are.
Yeah, where the numbers are. That's where the threshold will be. It's where the threshold lights are. Maybe you'll be aiming, your aiming point for landing might be somewhere around here, and then you'll land somewhere up here.
I guess that one confused me because I was thinking, I was like, okay, this is a runway, we shouldn't taxiing.
Okay, I see why you're saying that, but what are you doing on the runway before you're in the air?
Taxiing.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're taxiing very quickly with the purpose of getting off the runway. But yeah, and actually you can taxi on runways. Sometimes like I did night landings at Long Beach a few months ago. And when it's really dead, you're not allowed to do touch and goes at night, but they'll let you, if there's no one else there, land, stop, and they'll say, okay, taxi back via runway 26 left. You go, okay, taxi back, and you just turn around on the runway, come back, and then take off again. Or sometimes there will be a runway that's not in use, and that runway is like an intersecting runway. Maybe it's bad winds, or maybe, yeah, it's just not busy enough to use it. And that'll be a more direct way to taxi to where you want to go. And they'll say taxi via runway 13. You know, Echo Alpha 2 13, runway 13, you know, that kind of stuff. So you can taxi on runways too, but only when you are told that you can. Who has the right of way between a glider and a sling? Good, glider, slower and less maneuverable. I don't think we need to talk about that. Which taxiway are we on? 74%. Taxiway Alpha 19. Taxiway Alpha. Okay. Yeah, we're on Alpha 19. How do we know that?
Black hair.
Yeah, what's the rhyming way to remember that?
Lap.
Black square, you're there. Okay, so we're on Alpha 19, and this is telling you that Alpha is coming up. So you've actually all seen this if you've started from the fuel piston your taxi clearance. You'll see Echo, it's a black square, and then you'll see Alpha with the arrows going that way. You have a higher or lower stall speed with an aft CG. Lower stall speed. Yeah, someone explain why.
With the app CG.
Was it all just a guess? Okay.
With the app CG, you're constantly pitched up, I guess.
With an aft CG? So the forward CG, think of that as like kind of nose heavy, right? So with an aft CG, that means back, behind, aft. With an aft CG, you don't have to pitch up as much anymore because you're not nose heavy. The center of gravity is closer to the center of lift. So still, you know, the nose will drop a little bit, but not as much. So in order to maintain straight and level flight, we don't have to pitch up so hard like we would before. So at cruise, we have a pretty shallow angle of attack. So then when we start pitching up, we'll actually have a higher, we'll be able to pitch up further before we stall. Because when do we stall? Is it at airspeed? We stall when we reach or maybe exceed our critical angle of attack. So we have more angle of attack to get through before we actually stall. So we can actually get slower as we go, and we'll stall at a lower airspeed. Does that make sense? Do we need to go through it another time? No?
Let's do it again.
All right, clicking? Okay. Nose heavy. Boom. We know we have to have a higher nose up attitude in order to stay straight and level. So that means whatever our angle of attack is, we have a decent percentage of that just to maintain cruise. We were cruising at 105 knots or something. Kind of going fast, but we have to maintain this pitch up attitude compared to the relative wind. We have, so let's say this is our critical angle of attack right here. With that forward CG, then we would have to be, I don't know, maybe here or something just for straight and level flying. So with this, we have a shorter distance to go to reach our critical angle of attack. So we will reach that without slowing down as much. And, you know, the airflow would separate, we'd lose lift. So the forward CG will stall at a higher airspeed than normal. If we have a rearward or an aft CG, maybe this is where we're at cruise, going about the same speed. We have a larger percentage, a larger distance to go before we reach our critical angle of attack. So we'll be able to get slower and slower and slower before we stall. Yeah. If you don't have it 100%, it'll click. Someday you'll go over it a few times and then eventually go, oh, okay, I get it. But yeah, that's the basics behind it. All right, can you land at an airport with a rotating beacon showing 2 white and 1 green lights? No, unless it's an emergency. Someone tell me why. Military airport. Be truthful, I won't rat any of you out. How many looked at either your, looked up that question? Anyone looked that one up? No? You all knew it off the top of your head? 2 white and 1 green?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a good way of thinking of it. Yeah, good. Which direction of turn is a standard traffic pattern? Left turns. Do we have a standard traffic pattern here at Torrance? No. Well, I guess if the runways are flipped, then yes, we have a standard traffic pattern because the pattern generally stays on the same side of the runway, south side, north side, east side. So if it's right traffic in one direction, it's left traffic in the other direction. If a large jet lands before you, when do you want to touch down on the runway? After its touchdown point. Very good. And why is that? Not why did you get confused, but
I thought before its touchdown point would be like if a jet was here, you'd be touching down.
huh?
Like if the runway is going like this
Uh-huh.
and the jet touches down here, then you touch down before it.
Wouldn't that be after it though?
Like it's in front of it, like
Yeah, but if this is the runway, and let's say these are the 1,000-foot marks, and your CFI says land before the 1,000 footers, be somewhere in this area, right?
Yeah.
This would be after. So yeah, you have the concept right. But yeah, this is the depiction. Here's the runway. If a jet is coming in, if a big plane's coming into land, they do this, or if they take off like that. If we're coming into land behind it, we stay above their flight path, land after it. If we're taking off behind, then we would take off before, stay above it. Realistically, you can't stay above it for very long, so you'd have to deviate either to the right or to the left, something like that. But stay inside the bowl.
I guess I was speaking in terms of relation to the jet instead of their runway. Because you're
Yeah, you shouldn't land
after it on the runway.
after it on the runway, but you shouldn't land on a runway that another plane is on in general. But yeah, you get the concept. What are the 4 steps? Yeah, it doesn't say after the plane, it says after its touchdown
Yeah,
point.
let's talk about
What are the 4 steps to recover from a spin? Pair, power idle, ailerons neutral, rudder opposite, elevator down to break the stall, and then the step that's not discussed here is recover. So don't keep going nose down, but gently pull back. Why would we want to recover gently if we're hurtling toward the ground like that? Why would we want to take our time to,
don't cause structural damage.
and at what point would we cause structural damage to the plane?
Or like 2G.
4Gs, and this is describing what?
Gravity.
Yes,
13.
4Gs, there's an aviation term for this. Our limit load factor. Yeah, that's the most that we can do. 4Gs is what we can do. Other planes can do 12, but it's both our limit load factor. Do you have more or less control over the plane's pitch with an aft CG? Less because the arm is shorter. Oh man, we talked about this for a while. Yeah, the further forward our CG is, we need to have a rudder to make sure that we can pitch up or pitch down. That's its whole purpose. And if the CG is further forward, then we have all of this authority, like a lever, using a hammer. If this is a hammer and I'm hammering a nail and I hold it at the end, I can use all this weight to hammer it down. If I take it right here and back it like this, it's not going to help me very much. The further back I go, the more leverage I have on this thing. And it's the same thing with the elevator. To put it at extremes, if our CG was all the way back here, we wouldn't have a lot to pivot over and it wouldn't be very controllable. But if we have it all the way up here, we have all of this to play with. We can make big motions with this and have a small motion on the nose, small motions with this, big motions in front of the plane. So the further forward the CG is, the more authority we have with the rudder, the longer the lever. The further back it is, the less authority we have. The less stable it is.
It's talking about the arm being shorter or longer. I thought it was from the front of the plane.
It's from, they're referring to from the center of gravity.
Okay.
What does it say? Do you have more or less control over the plane's pitch with an aft CG? Less because the arm is shorter, less because the arm is longer. Yeah, so the rudder is fixed in place.
So it's the.
So the only way that the arm could be shorter or longer is if it's something that can move. So it's not the datum line that we measure all that stuff from weight and balance. I see what you're saying. But the center of gravity does shift, and that's the arm that they're talking about. Can you land at a private airport? No. You can get permission. You can land anywhere if you have an emergency. Private airport is certainly better than a road. Yeah, I have to have an emergency or prior permission. Without the use of an iPad or an AFD. What's an AFD? It's a old, it's like airport flight directory, I think. It's its term now is the chart supplement. So if you look at the airport information on ForeFlight, it'll say AFD. They still call it AFD for some reason, and that would show the airport information. Without the use of those things, how can you determine an airport traffic pattern, direction of turns? Fly midfield, look at the windsock and pattern indicator. Yep. What's another way we could determine if it's right pattern or left pattern? Not a visual resource like over the plane. So this, you could fly midfield, look at the windsock to see what's the favored runway, and look at the pattern indicator if it has one, to see what direction the pattern is. What's another way we can find out the direction of the pattern?
Isn't on like the chart or something when you're looking at like the airport, it shows like it's the right angle to be the right.
Let's find out better. Let's see. Come on, is there any of them that are showing pattern? None of them. These are all standard. But yeah, for sake of time, it would be in here. It would say, runway 27R, and you would know that 27 would be right pattern. But what would the opposite runway to 27 be? Doing some quick math.
090.
Yes, runway 9. Okay, cool. If a large jet takes off before you, how do you avoid its wake turbulence? Take off before its rotation point, take off after its rotation point. So if we took off after its rotation point, all of these, here's our jet. Here's our jet. It's a terrible picture, but you get it. If we took off after its touchdown point, all these wingtip vortices that were coming off of here, you'd be going straight through it. So you wouldn't want to take off after, you want to take off before. Just imagine like it's drawing a line as it goes, and you don't want to be in that path. You don't want to cross that path. Where should you enter the turn for turns around a point? Downwind. Upwind, crosswind, the rest of them are kind of even at any point. I almost kind of agree with the last one. But yeah, you enter downwind. Anyone who got it correct, can you tell me why you would enter downwind? What's the purpose of turns around a point? What's the goal? Yeah, make a perfect circle, a constant radius turn around it. What determines how much you have to bank in a turn? Winds, yes. Airspeed. Different kind of speed. Ground speed. So if it's a visual reference, yeah, it's your ground speed. So if we have, let's say we have 30 knot headwind coming this direction. If we're turning constantly in this, we're not going very fast. So to make this turn, we wouldn't have to turn very hard at all because it takes really long for us to actually get anywhere. But once we come back around the other way, we're going to be going super fast. So we have to make this turn a lot faster. So we have to bank more. The reason that we start in the downwind is that's our fastest ground speed that we're going to have, which means that we're going to have the biggest bank. So we can start with our largest bank and then go smaller the rest of the way and then goes large again. If you went the other way and you started with a large bank and then you came around, you have to bank even harder, and it's kind of setting yourself up for failure. So you start in the downwind. But again, this gets too theoretical for me. turns around a point, you're just making a perfect circle around a point. If you get close to it, fly further away. If you get too far away from it, then you come closer, you bank harder. Don't overthink it.
That's why I thought you could just come in at any point.
Yeah, you kind of can come in. You could successfully do it by coming in at any point. But the ACS, what is the ACS? Airman Certification Standards, which is how you're going to be evaluated in your check ride. The ACS says you enter on the downwind for that purpose. So that's what you do. How do you calculate your moments in weight and balance? That's your weight times the arm. Most of you got that correct. So yeah, it's we have our weight, we have our arm and our moments. The arm is given to you. It's a part of our weight and balance. You know, it has information in there, whatever. This is the information for the arm. The weight you put in, the total weight's given to you as well. But you put in whatever weights that you have here. You multiply the weight times the arm. That equals the moment. Then you add. Then you add up all your total moments. You add up your total weights. And then you divide your total weight. Or no, you divide, sorry, the total moments by your total weights. And that answer is your center of gravity.
This word arm is just a general term for something from this point to this point, not necessarily.
Specifically for weight and balance, it's coming from, does anyone know what the arm is measured from?
Yeah.
The datum line, which is something chosen by the manufacturer as a point to measure all things from. Usually it's right behind the propeller, somewhere in that area, but it could be like anywhere on the plane and be like, it's this far, even if it's the pilot seat, it's this far behind or this far in front of the pilot seat. It's best to put that really far forward, so it's all the distances are going in the same direction.
But is the arm from the center of gravity or the datum?
So the datum line, take the arm and the arm, let's say, use this. Okay, so we're measuring from the datum line, say it's right here. And that means that our pilot and passenger, or pilot, two front seats are 1.5 inches from the datum line. Rear passengers are 3.25 inches from it. And our wing tanks are 5 inches, et cetera, et cetera. So we take those weights and those distances, multiply them, add it up, and that will give us where our center of gravity is on this. Does that make sense?
I think it was just because of the rudder question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So an arm is a general term for a distance from a thing.
Okay.
But in weight and balance, you measure your arm from the datum line
Okay.
to figure out your center of gravity.
So it's just the same term.
Yeah. What's our VNE? That is 135 knots. Good job. What is our service ceiling? 12,000 feet MSL. Someone maybe in this class said 12,000 AGL. I hope that's just didn't read the question far enough. What's the difference between AGL and MSL? Okay, so what does that mean?
Ground level.
the pressure. Standard pressure something.
No, not quite. I think you know what it is, but.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a 5,000 foot tall mountain that we are 1,000 feet above. What altitude are we MSL?
6,000,
What altitude are we AGL?
1,000.
Okay. Which of the following is not a part of the I'm safe checklist? External pressures. Still a good thing to think about. But yes, that's correct. If your EGT4 sensor spikes, then stops working, and your lane A light comes on, what should you do? Cycle lane A. If it doesn't fix it, return to the airport. Good. What can happen if you skid too much while turning base to final? You run the risk of entering a spin. You inadvertently get into a slip. What is the difference between a skid and a slip?
Slips with your arrow going outside. It's, I think if I'm being a left turn, then my head would be going to the right.
If I'm gonna do a slip and I'm turning, a slip would be having my nose on the outside of the turn. Or no, sorry, hold on. Yeah. Nose on the outside of the turn. And if I'm turning this way, nose is on the outside, I'm getting nice airflow over both surfaces. If I have it coming in this way, on the inside of the turn, this wing fuselage is blocking this, and it's not generating lift, but it is generating drag, and you can stall and spin.
Does that happen because of like using rudder?
Yeah, so to put it good, I'm glad you brought that up. To put it another way, if the ball is, so if you're turning left, usually you need left rudder. If you use too much left rudder, then you are doing a skidding turn. If you use too much right rudder, then you're slipping. Which one is dangerous?
Skidding
Skidding. Is slipping dangerous?
can be,
Why can't it be?
if you overdo it maybe? You too much rudder?
You can't really overdo it, huh?
It's a lot of speed, but.
You do. That's usually a purpose of an intentional slip, is that you lose speed, you start to descend quicker. But Wyatt, we were just discussing whether it's ever dangerous to perform a slip. We're talking about why skids are dangerous. Is it ever dangerous to perform a slip?
If you lose too much airspeed.
Lose too much airspeed. What else would be dangerous about it?
Oh.
Like maybe if you were on your way to Compton and you're slipping into it for some reason. Do you know this story? And then you end up.
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay, so what's the danger with slipping?
The fuel tank that you have selected, make sure it's always on your high wing.
Always on your high wing. Another way to think of that, if you can't, mentally predict which wing is going to be the high wing, right rudder, right tank, left rudder, left tank. If you slip on the low tank, like this, or if your let's say your left tank is selected, this side, but it's the low tank, the fuel's all going to drain to the far side, so it can't pick up any fuel. And when we have the left tank selected, we could have fuel starvation and then also get some air into the line. So when we restart it, it's hard to restart. Slipping on the wrong tank is no joke. You are doing it, you're going to be learning slips pretty soon if you haven't already. You always have to make sure, double check that you're on the correct tank to slip. Otherwise, yes, you can have fuel starvation and crash. But as long as the correct tank is selected, then there's no harm in a slip. They're very useful. Okay. Thank you, Wyatt.
No worries.
Can you cross the dashed line left to right without permission from ATC? 85% of you said yes. Why?
Don't you
Yeah,
have to
right.
cross the line?
Yeah, in fact, not only can you, but you have to. You are not clear of the runway until you cross that dashed part of the line. If you're coming from the other direction, what do you need to cross?
Clearance.
You need permission to cross. And that is it. Great. Are there any general questions about what we covered today or what we covered this week? Any questions about sling in general or about getting your private pilot's license? Do you have questions about phase checks? Do you have questions about Flight Schedule Pro? Do you have questions about Discord? I can't help you with that, but I can maybe point you to someone when you're ready.
What happens after week 4? Isn't there something that happens after week 4?
Okay, so on the topic of phase checks, it depends on if you are enrolled in Part 141 or Part 61. You can be enrolled in either. 141 has different requirements than Part 61. Part 61, it can be as accelerated as you want it to be, but it is more at your own pace. 141, you're supposed to hit milestones at certain times. And you can't go out of order with those things. Part 141 has 4 phase checks. Part 61 has 3 phase checks for PPL. So the first phase check in Part 141 is kind of like straight and level flight, level turns, couple other things. And then the second one for 141 is going to be your solo phase check, which is the first phase check for Part 61. So it depends on what pathway you're taking. I did Part 61, so my first phase check was solo. Once you have done all of the required aeronautical experience, you've done the maneuvers, your ground is good, you've done the pre-solo quiz, submitted it, and you and your CFI have decided together, I think you're ready to solo. Then they'll sign you up for the solo phase check. Then you will, when that phase check comes up, you'll have a ground with a different CFI. And from your primary CFI, they'll test your ground knowledge. If your ground knowledge goes well, assuming it does, then you'll go out and fly. It's about an hour and a half or so of ground, about an hour and a half or so of flying, normal flying block, 2 hours. You'll do all the maneuvers you've been learning, steep turns, slow flight, stalls, emergency procedures, turns around a point, all that kind of stuff. And then you'll come in, do some landings, and they'll say, okay, you're good to go. You passed the phase check. Then your instructor will say, all right, Mason, congratulations, you passed your phase check. We're gonna solo next opportunity we get. So if the next day that we go out to fly, the winds are terrible and the visibility is low, then we might just have a normal flight and you won't solo. Or if the conditions are good, then we'll go in the pattern, do 2, 3, 4 landings together without me saying anything, without me doing anything, just sitting there making sure you're good. And then if we both say, hey, you want to solo now? You want to solo? Okay, excellent. I hop out of the plane. You do another quick run up, do all the comms on your own, take off on your own, make pattern on your own. If tower tells you to do something, you follow those instructions on your own, and you solo. Do like 3 landings. Your CFI will probably take a video or something from the sidelines, listen on the radio, and go, "That's my girl. That's my boy." But yeah, that's the next step for Part 61. Part 141 is a little bit sooner because you have that earlier phase check. All right, any other questions?
For buying the display, the control board.
Yeah. Are they still out of it? Ask dispatch if they're available yet. They were out of it a couple weeks ago. They had some on order. Hopefully they're there. Or like $25.
It's one of these.
It's not one of those. It's not on poster board. It's just like a regular poster that you unroll. It doesn't have actual knobs and switches, but it is really good for chair flying at home. Especially if you want to save time, get your flows down so you don't have to do that in the airplane. Yeah, anything else?
Do you know where you get the one with switches?
Ask them to make you one, and it would probably cost you $100 or something. Those switches are like, probably $5 a piece.
Really?
Yeah. I think you'd be fine without it.
Yesterday, because I was, we had flying plane that I was gonna fly, so I got like an hour early. So I was able just to go on the plane and sit there and practice on my own, but. let's just
Absolutely,
say-
you can do that.
But let's just say that I fly right now at 11, someone's still flying my plane, but if I wanted to go now, if I asked the guys, is there a plane that nobody's flying that I can go sit in? Would they let you?
If there's a plane that no one's flying.
Yeah.
And it's
You-
good to
you
go,
wanna
you can
sit
just
there.
ask if there's another plane that we can take right now.
No, but just so that you could sit there on your own.
Yeah, anytime during the day, you
Yeah.
can ask, hey, is there a plane that I could sit and practice? Maybe it's waiting for maintenance or something like that, and they'll go, oh, okay, here's the keys. Don't turn on anything. You can turn on like the G3X with the EFIS backup, EFIS 1. But we don't want to drain the battery, so don't turn anything on. But you can definitely sit in there, practice your flows. You can imagine doing pattern. Okay, I'm going to pitch up, then 500 feet, flaps up. 300 feet below TPA, I'm going to make that turn. As I'm making the turn, I'm using rudder in the direction of the turn, stay coordinated. Okay, TPA, level out. You can go through all that in a plane as long as it's available. Yeah, just ask. Anything else? All right, I'll see you next week.
This you good.
Session 3 of King School. Go through that. And if I don't say this every class, I mean it every class. Make sure you keep your ground good. Have your ground ahead of your flying, and that's the best way to actually progress quickly. I don't really care if you can fly perfect maneuvers after your 4th week. If you don't have the ground to back it up, you're not going to go anywhere. And all that flight hours that you keep loading and loading to stay proficient are going to go to waste. So keep your ground ahead of your flying. Study hard. All right, I'll see you next week. Have a good weekend. And also, tomorrow is Family Day. It's a thing we throw for the community. If you want to come get some free pancakes, walk around. It's a fun time. Yeah.
Signed up to volunteer.
Yeah.
Just show up 7:30.
Did you get any information on it?
No.
I'm going to talk to Kelly today and probably just slipped her mind. So look for an email or a Discord or something like that.
My family did just.
Oh shit, I never started the, no, I did, didn't I? Yeah, I did start the Zoom.